In this video series, we're discussing how to reach out to America and our immediate friends with the life of Christ. We're using the 2-volume set by David L. Roper for our background studies. Remember, taking someone through the life of Christ is the most natural way to bring someone to the gospel. In this video, we'll discuss with David Riley how to identify students and take them through the life of Christ. David has been preaching for the Mars Hill Church of Christ in Bologna, Arkansas for 45 years. He and his wife Beverly have 2 daughters, Crystal, who's married to a gospel preacher, and Angel, who is married to a deacon in the church. David and his wife are great examples of rearing a Christian family. When David began preaching, the congregation he was attending had only 9 members. Since then, the church, now 130 members, has grown in faith and influence in the community. The original 9-member congregation told David if he did not preach for them, they were going to quit meeting. He quickly learned to preach and revive the small congregation. Over time, he has led them to being a vital and vibrant evangelistic church. The church usually baptizes 20 or more people each year. Much of this growth is due to David's enthusiasm and dedication to personal evangelism. Beyond his pulpit preaching each week, David spends most of his time teaching people one-on-one. He also conducts 2 Bible studies each week, and through these studies has led many to Christ who now share his enthusiasm for evangelism. David seeks to guide others into being soul winners and mentor new converts into being leaders in the church. He can certainly be seen as one of the most effective evangelists in the church today. David, the first question is about the value of the 2 books on the life of Christ you suggest we use in our personal evangelism. How important is the subject, the life of Christ? Do you think that this is one of the most natural ways to teach someone the gospel?
Well, obviously it's very important to God because He didn't just send His Son and say, okay, I'm sending you today, die tomorrow. He sent Him to live for 30, 32, 33 years on this earth. And that life that Jesus lived was a model life for all of us. Wrote 4 Gospels, had 4 Gospels written that we find in our New Testament. And then all of those epistles, point back to that life that He lived. Of course, all of the Old Testament points forward to that time that Jesus was coming and the life that He would live and the ultimate sacrifice that He would make. So we have a model life. How else will I know how to live if I don't know how He lived? How else will I know how to win souls if the greatest soul winner did not live that life and show me how to do it? So the life of Christ is extremely important. So many people never study the life of Christ and never even have the opportunity to study the life of Christ. But when someone chooses to study the life of Christ, they become one of the few in this world that's true of. So anytime you have the opportunity to study through the life of Christ, you want to be one of those. I want to lay hold of that opportunity. I want to study through it. It'll change people's lives. The congregation where I attend, we formulated a little school, and it was through the life of Christ. And we studied through the commentaries by Brother Roper. The Life of Christ Volume 1, Life of Christ Volume 2. And there are members of our congregation which will tell you, that changed my life. I probably learned more from that study than any other study. There's something about a systematic study through the life of Christ that can that just makes you better. In Mark chapter 1, verse 17, Jesus began His personal ministry, and He found Simon and his brother Andrew fishing. And He said, you come follow me, and I'll make you to become fishers of men. He goes on and he finds James and John, the sons of Zebedee, and he says, and you come follow me too. So he's going to do the same thing for James and John that he's going to do for Peter and Andrew. And then for the next 3 years, he shows these men, helps these men become fishers of men. And then right at the end of that Gospel of Mark, after he's early in it, said, "You come follow me, I'll make you fishers of men." He tells them, after he's been crucified, raised from the dead, appeared to many, he says to them, "Now go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." In other words, now go fish. I've shown you how to do it. Now go fish. Well, as we study through the life of Christ, He's showing us how to win souls too. We just need to be alert to those things. How did He do it? What did He do? And if we do the same thing, we'll be effective fishers of men, soul winners for Christ too.
Starting out, every potential teacher wonders simply how you set up a Bible study with someone. David, could you walk us through how you identify a student, how you build a relationship with the student, and how you set up the study?
I don't have any one way. I don't have any one approach, one single approach. It depends on what happens with me. I can tell you about an instance in a Burger King where I approached the counter. I was a couple of people back, and I noticed the name tag on the young lady. Her name tag said Angel. Well, my youngest daughter's name is Angel. And as I stepped up and she took my order, I said, "Angel." And she said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "Oh, I was just reading your name tag. That's my daughter's name. Her name is Angel." That struck up a little conversation there as I placed my order. And I said, I really thought she was going to be a Harding University student, and she was working in this restaurant. And so I just said, "Angel, am I talking to a Christian?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Oh, I thought you were probably a Harding student. You're working here to make some extra money." And she said, "No." And I said, "Could I ask you why not?" And she informed me, "Because I'm Native American. My husband is a Christian, and that's what I'm doing here. He's here to study at Harding. I'm not a Christian because it would mean I had to give up some of my native customs and cultures." "Angel, I don't know anything about your native customs and culture, but I know this, that Jesus wants you. He wants you as one of His disciples. And if you do have to give up something, it'd be for your betterment. Could we talk a little more about this?" And she tried to put me off by saying, "Well, my husband will be here in a few minutes. Maybe he'll talk to you." I said, That's wonderful. I want to meet your husband too." But just out of that, a great Bible study happened, and Angel's a Christian today because of that. So sometimes I just simply ask them, "Am I talking to a Christian?" If they say yes, I love to talk to people who love God the way I do. Have you got time to visit with me a few minutes about it? And a lot of times a study will develop out of that. If they say, "No, I'm not a Christian," well, we can handle that, and I move in the direction I did with Angel. If I have a relationship with someone, like a family member, I'll say, "I have a wonderful study that people are enjoying. Could I talk to you a few minutes about that? I think you'd enjoy it too." And we're able to set up a study through the life of Christ, or if there are other ways to study, but I enjoy setting up the life of Christ Bible study with people, and I handle it like that. Could I tell you about this wonderful Bible study that people are enjoying? I think you would enjoy it too. More people are willing to accept those invitations than are not, is my experience. It's always up to them. But if I make up their minds for them and I never ask them, they never accept. They don't even have the opportunity to accept. But if I let them make up their own minds, it's been my experience that more of them accept the invitation than turn it down.
Thank you, David, for reminding us about how easy it is to set up a study with someone. How do you begin a study with someone? It must begin in some non-threatening way, right? For example, what are your first words?
Of course, I take them a copy of The Life of Christ, Volume 1. Now, I'm talking about if I was setting up the Life of Christ Bible study here. I take with me 2 copies, a copy for myself and a copy for the person that I'm studying with. If there's more than one person, I make sure each one of them has a copy of The Life of Christ, Volume 1. And I introduce them to it. This is going to be our outline for our study. And here's how we're going to do it. And I'll flip through it. I want you to notice that it's broken down into chapters. It's broken down into verses, and there'll be commentary on those verses. And I kind of show them how the outline of the book. And here's the way we're going to do it. We're going to study through 30 pages or 50 pages. Some people can't read as well as other people. They read slower, and you'll get a feel for that pretty quickly. If they're slower readers, I usually break it down into 25. Let's just read 25, 30 pages. I have some questions that I'm going to give you at the end of that. They're not going to be difficult questions. They're going to be over what you've read. And I'm going to next time we get together, I'm going to have those questions for you. When I leave, if you don't know the answer, go back and, hey, maybe read through that commentary a little bit more. And you'll find the answers to these questions. The next time I come, if you would, you have those questions answered, and I give you another set of questions because you've read 25 or 30 or 50 more pages, whatever we've decided we're going to do. I will take those questions that you've answered, and I'm going to look at them and make sure that we're following along together. And I'm going to study this along with you. And I take those questions and those answers that they've given to those questions, and I read through them. And if they don't seem to have that, I'll ask them to answer that question a little more deeply for me, or could you give me a little more information about this? I always tell them, no matter what, even if they've gotten a question absolutely wrong, I say, you're doing wonderful. You're doing great. But I always indicate to them, you need to read this one again. We'll talk about this one next time we get together. Something along those lines. But I'm always encouraging them. You're doing great. Just keep it up. Just continue to do what you're doing. And then the next week, I go back. I give them those questions. I let them read over them, my comments and those kind of things that I may make to them. Is there anything you want to say, anything you want to add? And they'll usually say something to, I see you want me to give you some more information about what I learned here. I didn't answer that question maybe just right. Exactly what do you have in mind? Well, let's just talk about it. Let's talk about it. And a lot of times, just by talking, we're able to get, I'm able to draw out of them that they either don't completely understand and I need to help them a little bit with their understanding, or that they really understood more than they put on paper for me. And if that's the case, I don't ask them to write down their answer again. Okay, I see you've got a clear understanding. You just didn't put it down for me. And I give them the next set of questions, and I say, okay, now you answer these the same way we work through this. This is the way this is going to work. We're just going to work through this. We're going to work through this. The people that I have going through the life of Christ, and I have, I think, 4 currently, they're going through the life of Christ. They are so excited that I've never learned so much about Jesus Christ in all my life. I'm so thankful for this. Well, when I hear words like that, I'm always encouraging them. It's just going to get better. It's going to get better. Just keep doing what you're doing. They catch on about the third week. Oh, here's how this is going to work. So they know what to look forward to. They know what's kind of expected out of them. They're more relaxed. And the more they relax, the more clear their responses to the questions become. So I don't have to spend as much time going over those kind of things. They're going to respond to it a lot more clearly on paper. I always ask them, do you have any questions? Without fail, they always have something they want to discuss. It'll usually be a question that wasn't asked, that I didn't have down for them to ask. But you didn't ask about this, but here's something I learned. And they begin telling me what they've learned. I always want to spend some time doing that.
Studying through the 2 books on the life of Christ can seem overwhelming at first, especially to new students of the Bible. David, how do you encourage the student to continue in this study? It seems that in this busy world, doing so would be a great challenge.
Well, that's a challenge because the devil is very good at what he does. And the closer they get to becoming children of God, disciples of Jesus Christ, the harder he seems to work. So it's a real challenge for the teacher to keep those students going. And they're busy. Satan uses that busyness. I'm convinced Satan uses that busyness. He lets the thorns of this world, cares and riches and pleasures of this world, choke it out. And he works hard to make that happen. So as a teacher, I have to work harder than he does to keep them going, Sometimes I have to slow down even more. Well, I'm busy. I don't have time to read 30 pages this week. Okay. Let's don't let that be an excuse to stop our study. Let's slow down. Could you read 15? Oh, yeah, I can read 15. Okay, then you read 15, and I'll get questions ready over 15. You don't want to stop now. I use this. You don't want to stop now. And if you stop for 1 week, and I am known to say this, if you stop for 1 week, the second week's going to be easier to not continue. So let's not stop. Let's just slow down a little bit. Let's slow down a little bit. And as time frees up for you, we'll pick this back up. But let's don't stop. Let's don't stop completely. And I keep them going like that. Let's slow down, read fewer pages, but let's just keep our study going. Let's make time for this. We make time for everything else. Let's make time for this. And most of the time they will. Most of the time they will do it. But you got to be alert to the fact that Satan's trying to pull them away. They're trying to pull them out of this study. And I even tell them that you got to remember, God's working, but Satan's also working. Now, which one are we going to go with here? And I encourage them along those lines. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop it.
Turning now to a crucial question, one that many are hesitant to ask. David, how do you ask a student to become a Christian? Do you ask them, or do they ask you?
They usually ask me. That's been my experience. They usually ask me. But if they haven't, if for some reason I've not done a good enough job or whatever, because I'm not perfect, no one is, and you'll improve as the more you do this, that you'll just improve and you'll get better and better and better. And the same approach doesn't work with everyone, but when it comes time toward the end of the study, especially if they've not expressed an interest in obeying the gospel, then I do just broach the subject with them. You've studied a lot now. You know more than 90% of the world know about the life of Christ and about what Christ wants from individuals. You know more than 90% of the world. I know that's just an abstract figure that I've thrown out there, but it's got to be true. Most people in this world, they never study through the life of Christ. You studied through the life of Christ. And then I just broached the subject with them. Are you considering becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ? Most of the time, which that's very few times have I ever had to do this. There is one where it got to that point, and I had to broach the subject like I'm doing right now. And when I did that, they said something like, "Oh, I was waiting for you to ask me about that." I said, "Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I should have asked you about this much earlier, and I take it on me. But I'm asking you now. Have you thought about this? I've been waiting for you to ask me." Well, do you have questions? Is that the reason you've been holding back? No. This person said, "No. The only reason I haven't is because you haven't asked me. You've asked me. I'm ready. When can I do this?" This person thought they had to schedule baptism. They had to schedule it. I said, "We're not scheduling anything. If you're ready, we're going now. And we're going to do it now." And we did. We baptized that person that afternoon. So that's just the way I do it. There's a better way. I know there's a better way. And I'm looking for that better way. But don't be afraid to just broach it, because if they've studied through the life of Christ, they're usually ready. And most of the time, they've already asked me.
We can tell, David, that you really enjoy talking to others and teaching others about Jesus. This characteristic must be a secret to your success. How rewarding is it to study with someone through the life of Christ?
I'm going to tell you about Angel that I mentioned earlier, that I met in a Burger King restaurant. And it was difficult for us to get together. I didn't want to be with just her. I didn't want her feeling uncomfortable, so I wanted someone else to always be with us. I really wanted her husband to be with us, but his study schedule and her work schedule made it difficult, so we met in a restaurant, her restaurant at her breaks. I had to put forth effort, but she saw that I put forth the effort to be there at her break times. So because it was so difficult, I eventually began a study through the life of Christ with her. And we handled it by email. I would email her the questions, and she would hit respond and fill in her answers and hit send, and I got her answers. And I would make any notes by hitting reply, and I was able to make notes to her. And we did it by email quite a bit. Now, I would still visit with her. I would still, anytime I was near that restaurant, I was dropping in to see if she was there. And I was keeping up with her through phone calls and text messages and things like this. And then one day, we were near the end of the study of the life of Christ. One day I went to that restaurant, and I asked the manager, I said, because the manager had even gotten to know my face, and I said, "Is Angel here?" "No." "Well, man, Angel doesn't work here anymore." "What?" I'd not heard. And said, "Yeah, she left last week, and she went back to the Indian reservation, to the Navajo reservation." So I immediately text Angel, and "Hey, I came by to see you, and you weren't here." And she explained to me that her sister was having a baby, and I came back to the reservation to be with her. And but I want to continue to study, and I urged her to do that. So we're still studying by email. And then one day, I got an alert to my phone, and it was a picture of Angel, and she's obviously wet. And she said, "I wanted you to be the first one to see this. But my husband baptized me into Christ this morning." And it's one of the greatest days of my life. An Angel is a great servant now alongside her husband, who's preaching on the Navajo reservation outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. I just visited with them a couple of weeks ago. That's a great story. That's a great story. To know that there's a sister in Christ halfway across the United States from me, who's serving Christ and is a great soul winner, who has a twin sister that's studying through the life of Christ with her right now, because that's the only way she knew to teach her. She said, the only way I know to teach her is the way you taught me. They know how to use the life of Christ to teach someone else. It taught them. They use that same method. And with Angel, that's true. She's using the same method to teach her twin sister today. We'll have another sister in Christ in just a short time.
You've been using the life of Christ at the Mars Hill congregation for some time. How have you seen congregational growth through the study of the life of Christ?
In our congregation, I told you we began that school several years ago. We began a little school, and the first studies was through the life of Christ 1 and 2. And we have people in our congregation now who we couldn't get them. I'll say couldn't get them. We had a little difficulty getting them to be involved in teaching others in our Bible school program, because they just didn't feel like they knew enough to teach that curriculum that we were teaching. So about a year ago now, we began to use the life of Christ in our Sunday morning Bible classes, in our Wednesday night Bible classes, and I taught the auditorium class. We needed teachers. Well, these people who had studied through the life of Christ began, oh, hey, wait a minute. We've studied this before. Yes, you've already been through this study. Can you help teach the 5th and 6th graders through this life of Christ? For the first time ever, they said, yes, yeah, we can teach that, because they had studied through it. So we've gained Bible class teachers, and they're getting the experience of teaching 5th and 6th graders, or 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. Another's teaching 1st and 2nd grade. And they'd never taught before, but because they had been through the life of Christ, they can now teach the life of Christ, and are doing a great job with it. That's exciting to me, to see the fruit of those kind of studies come out in those ways. We're still new to it, just like anyone else would be. We've used it now for a while. I've used this method for a while, so I have some results that I can talk about. But anyone who uses the study of the life of Christ is going to see fruit come from it. It may be that you're studying through the life of Christ with people who are already Christians, but they're going to learn to use it to teach others, even in a Bible class setting, in a Bible school like you have at your congregation, or they're going to use it to study with their family. They're going to use it to study with their friends. Most Christians that I know they want to study with others. They want to. They just don't think they know how to do it. And if we can show them, hey, here's a really effective method now, they'll use it, and they'll be effective with it. They will be effective with it.
Having asked you to discuss the basics of teaching others the life of Christ, David, what are other truths about personal evangelism that you think we need to know about? Tell us what you believe to be the big truths about soul winning for everyone to know.
Go to work. Just go to work. The Lord's going to be with you. He made us that promise. He made His promise to His apostles. You go teach all nations. You baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And lo, I'm with you in this. I'm going to be with you in this. And it's true today. The Lord's going to be with us. We sow, another does a little watering alongside us. God gives the increase. Just don't be afraid. Go to work. Just go to work. And if you're not going to try this method of soul winning, try some method. But just go to work and watch what God will do in our nation and around the world. Just watch what God will do. But this method is a method that will work. It keeps people in the study for a longer period of time. They get a lot more information through this study than they will many of the other studies that are designed to help them become Christians, which is great. That's what we want, to help them become Christians. But by studying through the life of Christ, they're getting a much more broad and solid base for when they become Christians. They got that base then to build their lives on. The Lord's going to be with us. Let's use either this method or another method, but let's go to work.
Haven't we enjoyed listening to Brother David Riley? He is a very kind and gracious man and has been instrumental in leading many people to Christ. We believe that he has sought to help each of us reach out to people around us who could come to know Jesus. We will try to take to heart everything David has said and go to work bringing many to Jesus. Remember what James said to all Christians. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. For once he has looked at himself and gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was. Let's not let this happen to us. Let's not go our way and forget what biblical truths about teaching others we have learned from David Riley. Remember, taking someone through the life of Christ is the most natural way to bring someone to the gospel. Now, here's the assignment for this week. Number 1, get together in small groups and list several places you might find students with whom you can share the life of Christ. You may want to think back over the places mentioned or alluded to in this video. Number 2, having listed a few places, see how many possible students you can list from each place. Hopefully, you will find several people who might be interested in the life of Christ being shared with them. Number 3, once you have listed these students, begin to gather the 4 forms of identification for each one, their home address, cell phone number, email address, and the life story of each one in a brief paragraph. You should record the best way to contact the people you could possibly teach. Make sure you have permission to use their cell phone number and email address as you communicate with them. Number 4, mention each person you have listed in your prayers this week. This exercise will assist in developing yourself into a continual recruiter of students with whom you can share the life of Christ. That's your assignment for the next class.